Treasury has predicted that from December, more than half of JobKeeper recipients will reside in Victoria. The restrictions imposed in Victoria have had a devastating impact on the economy, and Josh Frydenberg has warned things could get worse if state borders remain closed. Premier Daniel Andrews is under increasing pressure to reveal details on how and when restrictions will be eased in Victoria, with stage 4 lockdown slated to finish in a fortnight.
Further north, Queenslanders are being encouraged to wear face masks in public if they cannot socially distance. The advice comes after a childcare centre and a school were both caught up in the growing coronavirus cluster in the state's southeast. And in New South Wales, a public transport alert has been issued in Sydney after 2 positive coronavirus cases on a popular bus route. Let's get more now from our reporters Matt Doran at Parliament House. Steph Ferrier is standing by in Melbourne. Antoinette Collins is in Sydney. Good morning all. Starting with you, Antoinette. Do we know how many people on this bus potentially could have been exposed?
Well, New South Wales Health says as many as 11 passengers were on board the X39 bus route that went from Pitt Street in the CBD to Randwick in Sydney's eastern suburbs on the 20th of August at around 6 p.m. in the evening. They're being told to self-isolate for 14 days and to get tested, and authorities are trying to use their Opal card service to try and track these passengers down. Now it follows 2 people testing positive who caught the bus at this particular time. One of the people who's connected to the CBD cluster has told authorities that they were wearing a mask on board the bus at the time, and the second passenger tested positive on Friday. The source of that particular infection is still being investigated, but now the state government is coming under more pressure to make the wearing of masks on public transport mandatory. It's currently strongly recommended by authorities to wear masks on public transport at all times, but even this morning we've seen quite a fair few number of passengers and indeed bus drivers not wearing masks. Now it comes as authorities are getting increasingly concerned by this growing CBD cluster that's connected to the City Tattersalls Club. Yesterday there were 7 new infections recorded in New South Wales. 5 of those are connected to the CBD cluster, which now stands at a total of 28. While another infection that's currently under investigation is that of a student at St Paul's Catholic College at Greystanes, and there's an early learning centre, the Redham Early Learning Centre, that's also closed today in Linfield on the North Shore after a staff member tested positive there. But obviously this cluster is growing, and given that it seems to have established itself in the CBD, it is spreading across all parts of the city, which is a major concern.
It is indeed, Antoinette. Thank you. Let's go to Matt Doran at Parliament House. Matt, the Treasurer, of course, on the show half an hour or so ago, unveiling that Treasury analysis of the economic impact of the Victorian lockdowns.
That's right, Michael. Good morning. There are 3 sort of headline figures that the government is relying on today. The first of which relates to unemployment benefits, saying that since those lockdown restrictions in Victoria came into place, an extra 27,500 Victorians have been put onto unemployment benefits. So effectively, they've lost their jobs in that period. Treasury's also poured over some of the data coming in from the big banks, which has shown that household spending in Victoria has dropped by 30% during that period, compared to just 3% in other parts of the country. And the modelling going forward is that in the December quarter, so the 3 months leading up to the end of the year, of the 2.4 million Australians who will be on the JobKeeper wage subsidy, more than 60% or 60% of those will be in Victoria. So the government is using these sort of figures, which are quite shocking and show the true extent of how much economic damage has been wrought in Victoria since these restrictions came into place, to pressure Daniel Andrews to reopen his economy, or at least provide some sort of roadmap out. The criticism of closed economies and closed borders has been particularly strident towards many Labor states. Queensland, WA have copped their fair share, but certainly Victoria is now in the sights of the government, and it seems as though the Treasurer is going to be using much of today to criticise Daniel Andrews for not unveiling details of how he plans to bring Victoria out of lockdown restrictions. He says that the state has suffered greatly throughout this period, and that without any sort of plan going forward, that economic toll on Victoria and the rest of the country is going to be severe.
Kids are not seeing their friends. Grandparents are not seeing their grandchildren. Families can't go to work. Businesses have their doors closed. We're subject to curfews in Victoria. You can't move more than 5 kilometres from your home. The damage is immense, yet the Premier has not provided a roadmap out.
Josh Frydenberg on the show a bit earlier. And finally, Steph Ferrier, to you in Melbourne. Some better news, I guess, for Victorians over the weekend with those lower case numbers, but more nursing homes have been hit by the virus.
Yes, Michael, it's pretty worrying given that 9 of the 11 deaths recorded yesterday were linked to aged care, and we still have some 1,277 active cases connected to the sector. So those 4 new outbreaks are at the Bapt Care Brookview in West Meadows in Melbourne's north, and in the southeastern suburbs we have the Royal Freemasons Coppin Centre, the Blue Cross Chelsea Manor and the TLC Forest Lodge in Frankston. As you mentioned though, there is some better news with the new case numbers. They're down to 114. That is slightly up on the Saturday figure, and they're bouncing around a bit, but the downward trend is continuing. And Victoria has active cases that have fallen now below 3,000, as well as the mystery cases. Another good sign, they're the number of cases where the authorities can't pinpoint the exact cause after their investigations. They've risen by just 3. Now, authorities have always said that that's a really key indicator in terms of how we come out of these lockdowns. But Premier Daniel Andrews is refusing to say at this stage exactly what the roadmap will be. He says it's still too soon, despite growing pressure that Matt Doran was just mentioning then, although he does say that today he's going to make some announcements about how they will engage with industry. Now, we also have less than a fortnight to go before these lockdowns are due to end and the state of emergency expires. And importantly, there is still no deal between the state government and crossbenchers yet on how to extend those emergency powers.
Stephanie, Matt, Antoinette, thank you all for the updates there. Meanwhile, a man will today become the first person fitted with an electronic ankle bracelet to monitor his movements. That's all part of Western Australia's anti-COVID measures. Police say a 53-year-old man returned to Western Australia from Queensland on Friday without applying for an exemption to re-enter WA. Now, it's alleged he defied an order to quarantine and was found later by police at a Perth hotel. The hotel has been closed as a precaution. The state's police minister has defended the authorities' response to the scare, instead questioning why interstate travellers are still able to board flights to WA without bearing a permit. The COVID-19 shutdown could see Australia's emissions fall to their lowest levels in 22 years. The latest figures from the National Greenhouse Gas Inventory show emissions fell by a modest 1.4% in the year to March 2020. But the next set of data, due later this year, is expected to reveal a drop of 8% in the year to June. The biggest fall has been recorded in the transport sector due to a massive reduction in fuel use. Global cases of coronavirus have now passed 25 million. The US accounts for almost 6 million of those, while nearly 4 million have been recorded in Brazil. But India has broken the record for the highest number of infections recorded in a day, with 79,000 new cases in just 24 hours. Meanwhile, masks are now mandatory on public transport across New Zealand. Auckland has moved out of 2.5 weeks of stage 3 lockdown overnight, but restrictions will stay regarding social gatherings.
A growing number of coronavirus cases in Queensland will see tighter restrictions implemented across the state's southeast this morning. Let's go live to our new Queensland reporter, Michael Rennie, who's at a school in Ipswich where a student has tested positive. What can you tell us?
Yeah, morning Lisa, and the school, the Staines Memorial College at Redbank Plains, will be closed for the next 14 days after they found out on Saturday night that a student had tested positive to the coronavirus. It's a senior student, which means they've probably just been in certain sections of the school, so they're not worried at this stage about a major outbreak throughout the entire school, but they're taking every precaution, closing the school for 14 days and reverting to online teaching. And all the teachers will also undergo a COVID test, and they will, the school itself will undergo a deep clean over the next few days just to ensure that there's no spread of the virus. This follows the closure of a kindergarten over at Fig Tree Pocket, which is closed until at least this Friday, where one of the kids at that kindergarten tested positive to the coronavirus also, and that will see lots of people tested over the next couple of days, and they'll also have to go into a quarantine. Even if they test negative, Lisa, they have to go into quarantine until at least Friday for that 2-week window from when the child was at the childcare centre. So yes, it's a growing cluster here in Queensland at the moment, but the Queensland government's trying to do everything they can to try and keep a lid on it.
Yeah, well, and what does that include actually, Michael? What are people being urged to do?
Well, they're asking people now, recommending that we start wearing masks. So if you're out in public and you don't feel like you can, be at a safe distance and that 1.5 metres from somebody. So if you're at the supermarket or you're getting the train or the bus or you're just walking through the city, they want you to start wearing these masks, and just to ensure and to try and stop the spread of this outbreak that all originated from the Youth Detention Centre at Wacol, and then also the Queensland Wacol Corrections Academy also. So 23 cases of the 28 active cases in Queensland can be linked to those to those two centres. So yeah, wanting people to start wearing masks, Lisa.
All right. Michael, great to have you on the team. I reckon as we get closer to summer, we might take a vote on whether the tie can go.
It's got to go soon?
It's got to go soon.
I think so.
It's my decree.
Well, I don't think I could wear it during summer. It gets too hot. It definitely gets too hot here during summer, so I might have to lose it the next couple of days. So it's my first day. I'm trying to make a good impression.
You're making a great impression. I've got a great Western Bulldogs tie I'm going to send up to you. If you have to wear a tie, I think it's got to be that one.
Do not let him troll
If you've got a St Kilda one, I'll wear that.
No.
Hey,
Red,
Michael,
white and blue.
great to have you. Talk to you tomorrow.